Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. We have a great Thursday night DraftKings Showdown matchup between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens favored by 3.5 in this one. 46 is the total. We've struggled through 10 weeks of horrible island games to get ourselves to right now, week 11, and we finally have 3 good ones. We're going to start off with this one. We're going to build a pick'em card over on Underdog Fantasy. We are going to go through all the captains that I think are the most viable on this slate, give you a few of the cheaper, lower played players that I might be targeting on Thursday night, and then we're going to go over to Fantasy Labs and build 150 lineups. So thank you guys for being here. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notifications bell, and let's go.
He's a legend.
The Smiz Gang Listener League is up for week 11. It is 4,000 people large. It is 3 max to enter, $10 to enter, and absolutely no rake. The best tournament that exists on DraftKings, but it is not in the lobby. If you wanted to join the Listener League, you got to go to smizzle.tv/links. That'll take you to the link tree where you will find the link to the Listener League and everything else. You can go follow the Al Smizzle Fantasy Football channel where the recap video from last week is up. If you wanted to see how my cash game lineups, everything else, and if you finished in the top 10 in the Listener League last week, you get a shout out in the recap video. So do those 2 things. Make sure you join the Listener League today. Let's take a look at some of the captains from this slate. We'll start with the most obvious one, and it's going to be Ja'Marr Chase. 2 weeks removed from the back injury. He played last week. We worried if he was going to be active or if he was going to be active, and like, he was out there. He didn't get as much service as he normally did against Houston, but he did come down with a big 64-yard touchdown late in that game to make him push him over the top for that 26.4 point day. Now I believe, unless we hear signs to the contrary, that he's going to be just fine, expecting greater than 6 targets in this one. Baltimore, very, very, very tough opponent, obviously, but if you're going to play Ja'Marr Chase in the captain spot, you're going to have to use Joe Burrow with him, because if Chase has himself a large enough day to be the viable captain, 30, 40 points, that means that Burrow is going to have multiple touchdowns, possibly 300-yard bonus, but not be the optimal captain over Ja'Marr Chase in that occasion. He's only 1,500 less, but if we have Joe Burrow in the captain spot, we've seen a return. The beginning of the season was really meager, and then once things started rolling, 27 fantasy points, 27 fantasy points, 25 fantasy points, 24 fantasy points, 24 or greater for what? 4 of the last 5 weeks. Now he gets this very tough game against Baltimore. Last time they squared off, he only had 222 yards and 2 touchdowns. That one at home earlier in the season. I'm going off of the assumption, because we have not heard any news different than this, that we are not going to have T. Higgins for this game. We will see. Was a non-participant in Tuesday's practice. I don't think he's going to play in this. It makes more sense to give him the day off and then give him another full week and a half to rest, to be back for week 12 in the stretch drive, which opens up the other players on the roster. So I'm operating as though he is not in. We will still be building that Cincinnati double group, meaning that we're going to play at least 2 of his pass catchers. If Higgins plays, he would clearly be in the group and be captain in my captain's group as well, but I don't think he's going to play, so I don't have him in my group at all right now. Tyler Boyd had himself a really big day last week, even though he dropped a touchdown at the end of the game. 117 yards on 12 targets. We thought there was going to be a bump for him, and there was, with the absence of T. Higgins. This could have been a 30-point day. He's going to be in that group, as well as the Croc Hunter, Irwin, as well as Smith and Hudson and Sample, and basically anybody that's going to be able to catch passes from him. And we're going to include the kicker in that group as well, because kicker correlates with the quarterback. Can have a big day. The kicker is also going to be in position to not just get extra points, but also get a whole bunch of field goals. 38 points, scores a ton of points for a kicker. If they're able to move the football and Burrow is going to be the optimal captain, you have to tell yourself the story of what those things are going to be. And we'll include one of the skill players on the other side, bringing it back as well. Lamar Jackson is the key captain, regardless of what's happened the last 3 weeks. The last 3 weeks, he's had 2 touchdown passes. He has not run any in, because they've just been mauling people on the ground. We've seen Gus Edwards have multiple touchdown games. We've seen Keaton Mitchell score a bunch of touchdowns. We've seen Justice Hill find his way into the end zone. They've just been playing massively from ahead in most of these games. They got caught from behind against Cleveland, but they just haven't been leaning on Lamar Jackson at all. That is going to have to change. Not because if they want to win, they have to do these things, or not because we're fantasy players and we need him to do that for us, but because you're going to have to get leads against these teams. You can't just sock it away. You can't just pound the rock. against the teams that they're going to have to play down the stretch to lock up the playoff positioning that they want and win that division. And Lamar Jackson, previously in the MVP conversation, now 2 touchdowns the last 3 games. Maybe a little bit less so now. The shine is now on like CJ Stroud. He's still in the conversation, obviously. He's one of the favorites, but the stats may not be there to back up the votes by the end of the year. Wins aren't the only thing, as wins are not really a quarterback stat, but all the other stuff is. If Lamar Jackson ends up being the optimal captain, if you wanted to build that lineup around him, we're going to build that same group, targeting 2 of his pass catchers and the kicker in every one of those lineups, because again, if he has that big day, everybody else is going to have that big day as well. The other captains on his team, I think that there are 2 of them that we can consider. One being Mark Andrews. The big tight end has just been outstanding. He has one of the highest ceilings at that position, and in any game that he plays in, 14.6 on average, but we've seen him get above 20 points multiple times. He's seen a 40-point ceiling in his career. So he's not somebody you're going to want to shy away from. They haven't really gotten him double-digit targets, but twice this year, he floats in that 4 to 6 range. Again, they've been spreading the ball around. In a single game situation, he is captain viable, and we will be using Lamar Jackson in that lineup if he is. I do think that it's okay to open up your captain at quarterback a little bit more this week than we normally do. Zay Flowers has not had a blow-up game either. He is another viable captain in this spot just because of the juice that the kid has. He's getting more than enough service. He just hasn't broken away for anything yet, right? Like, you see it in the open field. He's only got 1 touchdown on the year. If he was to have that explosion game here, it would be somewhat of a surprise to some people, which is why I think that he is somebody that you might want to overweight at captain, who's going to be less played at captain, in my opinion. I don't think he's going to carry more than 5 or 10%. So getting 10 to 15 or something and overweighting the field while still having access to all of the other players because of the price that he is and some of the other guys, more than acceptable. That's basically it. That's a short list of 6 captains that I think are viable on this slate. Let's head over to Underdog Fantasy. Let's build a pick'em card. Let's go higher than 256 yards for Joe Burrow. We don't have any wide receivers yet because they haven't announced if Higgins is going to be the guy. So we don't really have that at this point. Give me higher than 4 receptions for Zay Flowers. And let's go. I think we're going to get more than 8 rush attempts from Lamar Jackson. We're going to do that for $100. We're going to try to win 600 here. And if you do not have an account over at Underdog Fantasy, use code ALSMIZZLE. That's ALSMIZZLE, all one word. Get up to a $500 deposit bonus on your first deposit to the site. It's free money. You might as well go get it. They're trying to give you free money, and I don't know why you're not picking it up. So we're going to try and win $600 ourselves. Let's look at some of the players that I think might be lower played players for the flex. Guys that are going to come in at a lower percentage on the week. Number 1 at 5,200, Odell Beckham Jr., assuming that he plays. He sat out with a sore knee. If he's in there, he's our guy in that 4,000 to 6,000 range that could do a little bit of work. Has twice as many touchdowns on the season as Zay Flowers. Now, personally, I don't think Odell Beckham Jr. has the burst that he used to have after the multiple knee surgeries. He doesn't look as quick, does not pass the eyeball test, not getting the same separation. And certainly after he catches the ball, doesn't have the burst to get away from DBs like he used to, where he was heels and elbows. He was the guy who could take the 6-yard slant 65 yards to the house. He's not that receiver anymore. But when he's healthy, you see that he gets way more service than is given him credit for how athletic he is at this point in his career. And he's in that range that's going to be under 20% owned. So I like him as a fill-in play that's not a kicker with upside. In that, kickers are always in that range as well, with McPherson at 4,000, Tucker at 5,400. People would rather click them because they think, well, he's a safer play. I don't care about safe when I'm talking about tournaments. That's never something that's in my consideration. We watched Tanner Hudson go nuts on the first drive. Had like 5 catches on 6 targets on the first drive. And that just, to me, means that Irv Smith is going to be in nobody's lineup because of that last game. The game log watcher is going to do their thing. Anytime that you can get a tight end on a team that has 3 of them with Drew Sample and Irv Smith and Hudson, now we get a situation where we can get a guy similarly priced at a much lower percentage and be that contrarian play that might be the difference maker. Again, every single point matters when it comes to Showdown, which is why guys like Nelson Aguilar, why does he have looks like he has a smaller headshot than everybody else? We're not looking under 1,000, we're not even looking for guys that can get 4, 5, 6, 10 targets. That's not going to happen. But if you can get somebody who can get loose downfield one time, which he has shown the ability to do this season and throughout the last 2-3 years of his career, as well as being utilized in this offense, again, every point matters. If you can get a 6-point day out of a sub-1,000 player with a possibility of a touchdown, you're going to put yourselves in a great position. And the last guy, how could I not mention Yoshi? He didn't practice Tuesday. If he plays, well, he's somebody who's got a touchdown or bust on him at 200. If Higgins is out and Yoshi plays, this is the guy that we want to kind of think about as our $200 punt play over on DraftKings. Let's head over to Fantasy Labs. If you do not have an account, go to smizzle.tv/labs with an uppercase L. This is where I start every showdown. These are my rules that we kind of discussed in this video. Pair your captain quarterback with at least 2 of his pass catchers or kicker. Captain quarterback with 1 of the remaining guys. Captain wide receiver with 1 of his quarterback. Captain tight end with his quarterback. And at most 1 defense or kicker from the same game. Now look, before anybody says, you didn't talk about Keaton Mitchell. What do you want me to talk about? You didn't talk about Gus Edwards. What do you want me to talk about? I don't feel that they are optimal captains on this slate, and I think that they're going to be massively played, possibly overplayed for the sharing role that both of them have with Justice Hill. So we're going to apply these rules, and I'm going to come over here and make sure that I have at least 1 running back and wide receiver that is less than 25%. I'm not saying don't play them. I'm just saying they're the obvious plays, but they sit right in the middle where I don't want them at captain, and I don't want to, they're not on 25%. So they're there. You're going to play them. Let's generate these lineups. Realize that you're never just going to go over to any Fantasy Labs builder or any slate or any lineup builder that you're going to play and click generate and all of a sudden print money. But if you wanted to get access to their NFL, NBA, college football, NHL, golf, MMA, everything that they have, the 6-month package is the best deal on the site, and it takes you all the way through the NBA playoffs. If you're not just an NFL player, they also have an NFL package only as well. Make sure that you work in your allocations, your combinations, and all of the things that you have in this, and make sure that you have the percentages that you want on each player. It's a great way to build a whole bunch of lineup for you, give you a different perspective while also saving you a bunch of time, because everybody has 9-to-5 jobs. Go over to Fantasy Labs, give them a look-see, see if it has what you like. And they've just released their sim product, their simulator project product that they have. So go over to Sim Labs as well under the NFL tool, and see if you can build some better lineups today. Thank you guys for watching. Look out for another video right there.
He's a legend.